In the computer information and data sciences field, there are countless opportunities where you'll be expected to provide some form of writing for your work. The example I chose to analyze is the McAfee End User License Agreement from McAfee, a computer security software company. This agreement is more specifically an example of technical writing I would possibly do in the future. It is written with the primary purpose of protecting the developer's intellectual property rights. Throughout this analysis, I will dive deeper into how it is written and why it is written the way it is. There are various different steps to know how it was written. As with many pieces of writing, one of the first steps is knowing your audience. Knowing your audience helps you to adjust the tone and vocabulary of the piece. It helps also to frame the structure of the work, but the main advantage of knowing your audience is using grammar to get them to meet you at the same level of knowledge. The next step is research. You need to have enough knowledge to teach because you can't teach something you don't know. Applying research to the work also helps to answer any questions that may arise. Creating an outline is what is done next in order to ensure you cover all areas. It also allows you to organize thoughts and information if you miss anything in your research outline that will help you identify what you are missing. Now that all the pre-writing strategies are done, there are a handful of ideas you need to focus on, such as readability. As seen in McAfee examples, simple language is used not to confuse the reader, but the goal is to teach the reader the agreement, not entertain. So language that is hard to understand would not be beneficial. Subheadings are used to make locating specific aspects of the agreement easier, and sections in bold help to provide emphasis on the content of the agreement. The addition of visuals can also help to release some of the tension of a word-heavy document. Any visuals pertaining to the text are recommended but not needed, as shown with McAfee. The last step in a technical piece is to cut out all the unneeded words and information. If it will tarnish the reader's perception of the work, it is best to keep it in, as it is not trash. This could be anything from one sentence to one page, but every word should be made to count. When all is done, everything double-checked by someone other than yourself. Technical writing. When everything is done, have it double-checked by someone other than yourself. Technical writing and the reason for the document being written the way it is depicted to help people understand complex information about a topic you might possibly be familiar with. There are generally three categories of technical writing, such as consumer-directed, expert-to-expert, and marketing. The model of technical writing McAfee uses in the agreement is consumer-directed. An end license user agreement is sometimes known as a software license agreement. It is used by the licensor, who is often the distributor of the goods or software. Then it must be approved by the programmer's purchaser or the product's user. End license user agreements are typically used digitally for different user types. The license agreement may take different forms. The government or other large corporations might use one, whereas private consumers might only use the other. The product specs, the software's authorized users, and any major disclaimers should all be disclosed in an end license user agreement. It may be necessary to update the agreement with new details as the product progresses through its life cycle. The permissible use of pieces of software are often specified in EULAs. For instance, certain programs might have no-cost, non-commercial licensing. As opposed to this, commercial businesses may pay licensing price that varies depending on the volume of records handled, the number of users, or even the size of the business. Most EULAs contain provisions prohibiting users from discriminating the program in a manner that would be detrimental to its author. Some even have provisions that prohibit users from criticizing the software or the company that made it to the public. Businesses increasing in size must manage a wide variety of contracts and agreements. Therefore, it is important for software developers to understand the fundamental elements of a EULA. Draft and license user agreements that are appropriate for their businesses and keep a record of the people and organizations with whom such agreements are in force. I'll read a couple of clauses from my EULA that I thought outline what the concept is. So a lot of the clauses EULAs have an acceptance clause which goes and license grant. So I'll read that for you. You accept and agree to be bound by the terms of this agreement by selecting the accept option and downloading the software product, or by installing, using, or copying the software product. You must agree to all the terms of this agreement before you will be allowed to download the software product. If you do not agree to all the terms of the agreement, you must select decline, and you must not install, use, or copy the software product. Most EULAs also have what's known as a license grant, which entitles you to install a copy of the software product. Usually there's restrictions around who can use it and if you're allowed to sell it to a third party. There are clauses to prevent that. A lot of EULAs will have restrictions, whether it's on the rights for the use or, like I said, selling it to other people or installing it on systems with more than one computer or permit. And if you hold multiple license copies, you may not use, copy, or install the software product on any system with more than the number of computers permitted by a license. Something like that is what companies will use in their license agreements to help manage their products so it doesn't tank the value of it when people find loopholes in the end license users agreement to undermine their work. Most of them also have disclaimers of warranties and limitation of liability, which talks about the damages one would pay or the implications of what might happen if someone has some issue with the agreement or if there's a breach of contract. And some of them, such as business and software EULAs, will have something surrounding actual physical laws of a state, and a severability clause, which states that you can sever to the extent any express or applied restrictions are not permitted by applicable laws. So these express or implied restrictions shall remain in force in effect to the maximum extent permitted by such applicable laws. So if the agreement is broken by whoever was purchasing it, they can be held liable depending on what the reason they was for breaking it, what the end license user agreement says about it, and if they were within their rights when they did violate it. And that's when the limitations of liability clause comes back into play as well when you're determining the outcome of where to go from that moment forward.